Imagine this. It's 1971, Thanksgiving Eve. A man who identifies himself as Dan Cooper boards a plane headed from Portland to Seattle. Quiet, dressed in a dark suit and tie, he seems like any other passenger, until he hands a note to a flight attendant that changes everything. Cooper has a bomb, he claims, and he wants $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. Within hours, he's in control of the plane, orchestrating one of the most daring hijackings in U.S. history. Despite the FBI's relentless efforts, Cooper vanishes into the night, never to be seen again. For decades, his true identity and his fate have remained a mystery, fueling countless theories and investigations. Who was DB Cooper? How did he manage to outsmart the authorities? And why does his story still captivate the public's imagination? Join us as we dive into one of America's most legendary unsolved cases. Dan Cooper, later misidentified in the media as DB Cooper, was a mystery from the moment he boarded Flight 305. Blending in with the other passengers, he took a seat near the back, ordered a bourbon, and quietly observed. But just after takeoff, he handed a note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. Initially, she assumed it was a routine businessman's note, perhaps a phone number, and pocketed it. Cooper leaned toward her and quietly insisted, "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." The message was clear. Cooper demanded $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck ready in Seattle for the plane's next leg. In calm, precise instructions, he revealed a man well prepared. Witnesses described him as around 40 years old, wearing a dark suit, raincoat, and black tie. His behavior was strikingly composed, almost polite, showing no signs of agitation or recklessness. As the hours passed, Cooper's calm demeanor became all the more unnerving. He allowed the passengers to remain unaware, easing the crew's fears by keeping his bomb out of sight and reassuring them that no one would be harmed as long as his demands were met. FBI agents in Seattle scrambled to assemble the ransom, uncertain about Cooper's true intentions. Was he a professional with military training? An ordinary man looking for a thrilling escape? By the time Flight 305 landed in Seattle, Cooper had gained complete control of the situation. As the plane touched down, authorities awaited the exchange, their minds reeling with questions about who this man was and how he intended to pull off such a bold heist. What Cooper did next would cement his place in criminal lore. With his demands met, Cooper prepared for the next phase of his audacious plan. In exchange for releasing the passengers, he received the ransom money and parachutes he'd requested. He ordered the remaining crew to fly south toward Mexico City, instructing the pilots to keep the plane at a low altitude of 10,000 feet and to fly with the landing gear down and flaps partially extended, conditions ideal for a parachute jump. As Flight 305 took off once more, now carrying only Cooper and a few crew members, he retreated to the rear of the plane and began his preparations. In the dim cabin, Cooper calmly strapped on a parachute, secured the cash-filled bag to himself, and inspected the plane's aft stairs. At some point during the flight, he opened the rear door and into the cold, stormy darkness took the plunge. The storm over Washington's dense forests was fierce, and the ground below was a maze of rugged terrain. Given the risky conditions, many speculated that Cooper's survival chances were slim. He had jumped into darkness, facing temperatures below freezing, strong winds, and without modern navigational tools. Yet Cooper had orchestrated each move with precision, leading some to believe he might have had advanced knowledge of parachuting or survival skills. When the crew eventually landed the plane, Cooper was nowhere to be found. Search parties scoured the area, but no sign of him was uncovered. The FBI launched one of the most extensive manhunts in history, combing miles of wilderness, but to no avail. In that jump, DB Cooper had managed the impossible, disappearing without a trace, leaving behind only questions and the echoes of a perfect crime. The FBI's response was swift and determined. Agents tracked Cooper's likely landing area within the forests of Washington and organized extensive search teams. However, rugged terrain, unpredictable weather, and Cooper's lack of identifying information created immediate setbacks. Although the hijacker had handled items on the plane, none of the fingerprints recovered led to a viable match. The FBI questioned passengers, crew, and airport personnel, But Cooper's careful behavior provided little to go on. His clothing and mannerisms had been neutral, revealing no distinctive traits. Over the next months, the investigation expanded. Authorities focused on missing persons reports, military parachuting experts, and anyone with specialized survival skills. Although Cooper had left behind a clip-on tie, briefcase, and even a few cigarette butts, none of these clues offered the breakthrough agents needed. Despite years of analyzing the ransom bill's serial numbers and distributing them to banks nationwide, no significant trace of the money was found. The FBI, frustrated by the lack of leads, continued to treat the case as active, pursuing numerous suspects over the decades. Yet each promising lead seemed to evaporate as investigators hit dead end after dead end. The manhunt for D.B. Cooper became one of the most exhaustive investigations in FBI history. Yet he remained an enigma, a phantom whose trace had seemingly vanished in the night. As the years passed, public curiosity only grew, and theories around Cooper's identity and fate multiplied. One popular theory suggested that Cooper was a former military paratrooper, given his knowledge of parachuting and the deliberate way he conducted the hijacking. Supporters of this theory pointed to his confident handling of the parachutes and the instructions he gave for the plane's altitude and speed. Some speculated he was an ex-Vietnam War veteran or a paratrooper who had turned rogue. Another theory proposed that Cooper had not survived the jump. The weather conditions were brutal and the terrain was challenging even for an experienced jumper. Skeptics argued that jumping in the dark into unknown wilderness with cash strapped to his body was a suicidal move, especially in the stormy conditions Cooper faced. Adding weight to this theory, some of the ransom money, weathered, degraded, but intact, was later discovered along the banks of the Columbia River in 1980, fueling speculation that Cooper had perished shortly after his jump. Beyond these theories, the FBI considered and investigated numerous suspects, including Richard Floyd McCoy, a man with military experience who had committed a similar air hijacking. Although McCoy was apprehended and later died in a police shootout, some theorized that he might have been D.B. Cooper. However, key differences in behavior and McCoy's lack of resemblance to Cooper's description led many to discount this theory. Over the decades, other suspects emerged, each with compelling but ultimately inconclusive links to Cooper's identity. Several individuals claimed to be D.B. Cooper on their deathbeds, and amateur sleuths offered theories that were alternately credible and outlandish. None of these claims, however, held up under scrutiny, and the FBI officially closed the active investigation in 2016. Yet for every suspect ruled out, the mystery only deepened. Theories about Cooper's identity and fate remain popular, with each twist keeping his legend alive. The D.B. Cooper case quickly became embedded in American popular culture. The audacity of the hijacking and Cooper's calm, mysterious demeanor transformed him into a folk anti-hero, a criminal who managed to outwit the FBI and disappear. He inspired countless references in films, television, literature, and even music. Series like Breaking Bad and Prison Break incorporated nods to his story, and movies speculated on what might have happened if Cooper had survived. Cooper's image as an enigmatic figure, standing defiant against authority, struck a chord with many who saw him as a symbol of rebellion and mystery. For some, he represented an almost mythical quality, a character larger than life who defied the system. Despite the crime's severity, D.B. Cooper became an icon, representing a thrilling what-if story that seemed more fictional than real. This cultural legacy kept his tale in the public imagination, where it remains an enduring fascination decades later. The D.B. Cooper hijacking prompted the U.S. government and airlines to enforce major changes to aviation security. In the early 1970s, air travel security was minimal, and hijackings were shockingly common. After Cooper's escape, however, the industry took notice of the vulnerabilities he exploited. To prevent future hijackings, airlines installed new measures, including the Cooper vane, a device that prevents the rear stairs from being deployed mid-flight, which was how Cooper had managed his escape. In addition to this mechanical safeguard, airports introduced mandatory baggage screening, which was a groundbreaking shift toward the intensive security we see today. The D.B. Cooper incident played a direct role in advancing safety protocols for passengers and crew members alike. Though Cooper himself was never caught, his crime marked a pivotal turning point for aviation security, catalyzing a new era where air travel became much more regulated and secure against similar threats. D.B. Cooper's story remains one of America's most intriguing mysteries, a crime that has refused to fade with time. Despite decades of investigation, theories, and amateur sleuthing, his identity and fate are still unknown. Cooper has become a modern-day legend, a character shrouded in myth, capturing the public's imagination with his cool demeanor, audacious crime, and apparent ability to vanish without a trace. As we reflect on the details, it's clear that the legacy of D.B. Cooper transcends the crime itself. He represents a story that defies easy answers, inspiring fascination and endless speculation. Was he a criminal mastermind who succeeded against the odds? Or a reckless adventurer whose luck simply ran out? One thing is certain. As long as people remain curious about the unsolved and the unknown, the story of D.B. Cooper will continue to captivate and mystify. What do you think? Is D.B. Cooper still out there? Or did his story end in the wilderness that night? Share your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more mysterious stories and criminal legends. Who knows? The next mystery we cover might be the one you solve.